To begin with, I first cut a piece of fine silver bezel strip, and I'm using 3/16 inch and 28 gauge. So now let's get ready to solder. So I have my bezel and I'm lining up the two cut edges that I'm going to solder together, and I want to make sure they touch perfectly and there's no light shining through. I also want to make sure and clean the piece really well so there's no fingerprints that might keep the solder from flowing. Now I'm going to spray a little bit of spray flux, and I've also cut a piece of hard solder. It's flat solder that I've folded in half, and I'm fitting over the two cut edges that I'm getting ready to solder. There you can see the little piece of solder folded over the joint. Now I'm using my hand torch to melt the solder. Okay, the solder's melted. Now I'm going to dip it in the water bowl to get it cooled off so I can take a closer look. The solder looks pretty good. Now I want to take my bezel and fit it over the stone to make sure everything still fits. So the bezel fits, but it's a little bit tall. So I'm going to go ahead and use this 220 grit sandpaper and file down the edges. And I like to do both sides just to make sure they're nice and flat. And I'm going to sand it until it's the right height for the stone. Now I want to add a piece of bead wire around the bezel. So I went ahead and cut a piece of wire and soldered it. And now I want to make sure it fits around the bezel. So I went ahead and soldered the bead wire around the bezel. And now I need to go ahead and cut out the shape so I can attach the ring band. Now I'm just using a jeweler saw to cut the excess metal from around the bezel. Here's the cutout bezel. Looks pretty good. Now I'm ready to solder the ring band onto the bezel. Now I'm going to go ahead and use easy solder wire, and it's a good idea when cutting solder wire to fold over a paper towel or a rag. Otherwise the little piece of solder can go flying across the room. This just keeps it in one place so you don't lose it. My ring band is made out of two pieces of 12 gauge wire that I bent and soldered together. Now I'm going to go ahead and line up the ring band on the back of the bezel. I'm using solder paste to apply to the back of the bezel before I attach the ring band. And I'm just going to go ahead and dip the whole thing in there, and that'll give it a good coating so it doesn't get fire scale when I solder. Now I'll go ahead and take my ring band and get it lined up again. Now I'm going to take a little bit of spray flux and just coat that ring before I fire it. And now I'm going to just go ahead and heat the solder till it turns into a white coating. Now I like to use the solder paste on the back of the bezel where the ring band's going to be attached, because I just feel like it forms a thicker layer of flux and the solder flows a little better than just using spray flux. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my little pieces of solder on the inside of each prong where the ring band is going to attach to the bezel. I like adding it to the inside so I can heat around the edges and the solder will flow towards the outside and not create any kind of solder spot. Now I'm just heating the edges around where the ring is going to attach to the bezel. And I want that solder to flow underneath the ring band along the back of the bezel to form a clean attachment. Now that the solder's melted, I'm going to dip it in the cool water so I can take a look and see how the solder joints look. And they look pretty good. Now I'll go ahead and put it in the pickle solution and get it cleaned up. So I've been making this ring for this Chrysocolla stone. It's very beautiful. And I put it in the tumbler yesterday. Came out nice and shiny. I went ahead, the ring is not set, but it's looking really good. I really like it. So we're gonna finish it up. I'm gonna go ahead and set it and then give it a final shine. And I think it'll look really nice. So I'm gonna set my ring, and I've got these little ring holder things, I guess. I guess that's what they're used for. So I'm just gonna get, let's see if this works. I've got my gooey stuff here. It's pretty hot, so I don't want to touch it. All right, oh, this is gooey. Ah! All right, get back in there. Ouch, that is hot. All right, let's take that off. And let's see. The ring, stay right there. In between those. There. That's gonna work. So these are just two of the attachments that came with this vise. And this is the attachment. Little tray. Now I gotta wait for that to dry. Let me make sure it's in there good. Okay, the moldable plastic is hardened, and now I'm ready to use my bezel roller to go ahead and push the sides in towards the stone. Now I want to make sure and go all the way around the stone and get them pushed in as close as possible. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my bezel pusher to make sure the bezel is all the way against the stone as far as it'll go. Okay, now that the stone is set in the bezel, I want to go ahead and grab my burnisher and go around the edge, and this will just flatten it out completely and give it a nice smooth finish. So we got a ring, nice and tight. Let's take it out here. Put these back. These are the pieces I was using. Now I gotta dip this back in the hot water to get the ring out. We'll put that in there. So I've got this, had to re-microwave it because it wasn't coming out. Okay, put that back in. Now it is ready for cleanup for its final. I'm gonna smooth out the edges and give it a good polish. Now that I've smoothed out the edges, I'm ready to give it a polish, and I'm using a cotton polishing wheel that attaches to my Fordham tool with some polishing compound, and I'm going to give it a nice shine. Well, I'm done polishing, And the ring now has a nice shiny finish and is ready to wear.